Welcome back. So I left you with an exercise, but before that, I want you to first think of this program. So I'm just going to run it and demonstrate. So if you run your code, it requests your user for maybe your weight in kilograms or the lbs. So if I enter maybe like 500, that's from my keyboard. Then it asks me for the format. Do I really want it in lbs or in kgs? So maybe like I want it in lbs. So if I click that, then it tells me you are 225.0 lbs. So if I run the program and now I want the format in kgs, expect that also returns it. So 500, then I want the format. I'm using K to actually substitute in the place of kgs. Wow. So it tells me that you are you have an error. So we'll just fix that in our next project. So okay, let me just fix this before we continue. No, I'm just okay. So you are, then we have converted with in kg. So yeah, it's just okay. Sorry, you stole that program. Anyway, I want you to run that, so we will actually work it out together to fix that. So let's get started from the previous exercise. So we are going to actually we had a score of 80 and above was excellent, and then from 50 to 80, from 50 to 80, the score was a pass. Then from 0 to around 50 was a poor performance. So we're going to write this code actually. So if you didn't find it right, then don't mind, don't worry. You're going to write it right now. So we're going to ask our user for an input, but it has to be an integer. So we're going to request for an input which is an integer, then tell the user to maybe enter your score. Now, then we're going to store this in a variable maybe called score. Then also we are going to request, yeah, I think we're done. So we're not going to request anything more. So we are going to now start checking and validating within our ranges. So just keep in mind that we use the comparison operators. So if score is greater than 80 and score must be less or equal to 100, then we're going to print to the user that, hey, you had an excellent score. Then we are now going to condition number 2 if that condition was not met. So if now the score is greater than 50 and score is less or equal to 80. So I want you to know this. So we are using less or equal to. That means in our first scenario, 80 is not included. So start from 81. In our case now, it includes 80. So you're going to print something to the user that was poor. Although it's a good score anyway, but this is just code. So the next thing is else if you now want to check for the score that is actually poor score. So if score is greater, it must be greater than 0, and the same score must be less or equal to 50. So note here that we didn't include 50, so we are including it from this point. So 50. Then we want to tell the user that, well, that was a poor score. Then put that in square brackets. So else, if that was not met, let's tell the user to enter the correct output. So enter, not output, the correct score. Actually, the correct score, that should be maybe now a number. So I'm just going to select this and then hold my shift and comment it out. Oops, it just included this one. Well, so I think that's the complete part of the project. So if I now run without debugging, then it tells me to enter my score. So if I enter 50, if now I enter 50 over here, great. So now my score says it's poor. So let me delete these other outputs. So let me run again. So let's enter maybe a score of 100. Let's say I scored 100%, and it's very possible. So maybe I scored 100. wow, I'm receiving excellent. So to just recap is, you start by asking for a user and directly convert it into an input, because by default, when you request for an input, it comes as a string. Then you use the comparison operators to check for the conditions. Now, I hope you have thought of data program. So pause the video, then come back for the solution. Now, here is the solution. We first have to request for a user to actually input the weight. So we're going to say weight. Okay, so let's say enter your weight, and remember this is an input. So on this input, we want directly to convert it into an integer. So we're going to say int input, then store the results in weight variable. Then the next thing we want to do is we want to ask for the user for the right conversion type. So let's say weight converter. Then that will be an input. Then maybe L for LBS and K for kilograms. So let's watch this so that it looks a little bit unique for a user to quickly identify it. So I'm going to add that. So we are done with requesting user input. So for now, we want to start doing the conversion, but we must check with the if statement if the condition actually be met. So if the user has chosen L, then we can actually do something. So if weight converter, let's say equal to L, then we start now conversion. So we now give maybe the converted weight. So let's say final weight. Then we now calculate. So we're going to say if it's in L, so we're going to actually multiply it. So we're going to say the weight asterisk. Remember asterisk was used for multiplication. So L times out. Then we're going to return an output to the user. So let's say your age is, then add that. Then we pass it, not your age, actually your weight. Your weight in kgs. No, in LBS, sorry, now, because we are converting it. So in LBS, then we now pass in the final weight. Yeah. So final weight. So remember, this is the F string formatting. So I'm going to put my F there. Then we now go for the second condition. So else, so L if the weight converter equal to K. So what do we do now? We actually start converting directly. So we're going to call weight, then divide it by 0.05. So remember, the / is a division in Python. So we're going to assign this to our updated final weight. And then we are also going to print this to the screen to the user. So print your weight in kgs is, then we now pass in this one, then the final weight. Then remember, this is the F string formatting way. Else, if the user hasn't entered the correct, actually either L or K, then we want to tell the user to now enter the correct output. So sorry, I don't know what I'm saying output. The correct input is the input. So let's say enter correct character. And boom, we are done. So that was really very quick. So if we now run our program, then we now see, so enter your weight. So let's say my weight is maybe 500. Then I choose L. So your weight is 2,500. Now, there's big problem over here. What happens if I now try to choose capital L? So let me delete this output and then run the program. So let's see what will happen. I'm not sure if you really encountered that while solving it. So you are at 500, then I chose so caps lock L, enter the correct character. To solve this, we are going to make sure that any user input is actually presented to a lowercase by using the dot lower. So if the weight we are going to get, you want to convert it into a lowercase. So you now add dot lower, and then our first case has been solved. So let's run. This time round, we are going to place capital K, so maybe weight of 500. Sorry for that. So weight of 500. Then we are going caps lock K. Then we now have our weight has been converted directly. So you want to make sure that the user input has actually been in the correct format so that we don't encounter errors. So the next thing we want to see is, what if I enter a wrong character? So I expect my program to go back and re-execute it so that I can enter the correct program. But if you now run and see what happens, it breaks away. So maybe I enter 660, then I choose G, enter correct character, and I don't have any other place to enter it. So next thing we are going to see is the while loops. It will allow us to check for conditions. If they're not true, then repeat itself. So I'll see you there.